Hello. I'm gonna try something really quick. Hey Andy, you want a treat? You want a treat? He knows his name. Well, I'll give him a treat after the video. So I read The Three Stigmata of Polymer Eldritch by Philip K. Dick. Cover. This was a book recommended to me by someone on YouTube. I can't remember now who recommended it, and I'm sorry about that. I don't even know where to start looking for it. And it's probably one of the few science fiction books I've read this year. I don't generally care for science fiction or fantasy. I don't read very much, so it's sort of a circular argument. But I don't really like those kind of movies anyway. All that being said, for the most part, I really enjoyed the book, and I had a lot of thoughts while I was reading it that were not very novel, but at least occurred to me. To me, the biggest interest of the book was actually the world building. I have a feeling that's probably common for science fiction and fantasy. The plot was pretty like boilerplate. I didn't think the characters were that great, but it's this future world where they're now colonizing the solar system, and they've discovered other alien civilizations. So they call our area, instead of the solar system, they say the Sol system, and Proxima Centauri is the Prox system, and there's Proxima aliens. They don't show up in the book, but they're talked about, which makes them more mythical, scarier. Actually, one of the things I thought was that the fact that they're not around is probably like more realistic. Like in my life, if they say that there was some sort of extinct tiger that was finally discovered, I would never see it. I might see a picture of it. In the same way that if we ever have like contact with aliens, I don't think I'm going to see aliens walking around my backyard. I'll probably just hear that there's aliens, and then that's it. I'll be back to looking at my squirrels. Anyway, the main character's name is Barney, and he's a precog, so he has precognitive abilities. He can see into the future, and there's a whole group of these people that have this ability. It has a great introduction to how it affects people. At the very beginning of the book, him and this other woman get drunk, and so he wakes up the next day and he finds out that they had slept together. And they're talking about why did they sleep with each other. And they were both precogs, and so they knew in the future they would eventually have sex, and decided, like, since it's already inevitable, like, we'll just get drunk on our first night and do it. So Barney is drafted, and in this book that means that he's drafted to be a settler on Mars, which Mars is still an inhospitable, barely habitable place, and it's described to be very similar to like the frontier of Alaska, or any fringe frontier that living is harsh, and getting sentenced or getting drafted to Mars is basically a death sentence. You're going to be sent there, and you'll be there until you die. You don't come back. The settlers are called hovelers, and they live in a hovel. And with the book, one of the big plot points of the book is that there's drugs. There's the drug that everyone already takes. It's called Can D. So it's Can dash capital D, Can D, and it seems like a mix between like LSD and heroin. And all of these outer space travelers and settlers and colonists um, spend their time either trying to get this drug or using this drug. And you basically pass out and hallucinate and live, experience a more pleasurable surrounding than what you're in. And the book's main character, or the antagonist of the book, sort of is Palmer Eldritch. He was someone that went off to like the far reaches of space, and now he's back, and these aliens gave him a new drug. It's called, he calls it Chew Z, and it's much more powerful than the drug that they already have. And from what I understand, it has the distinction of being a shared experience. So the people that take it go into like a shared hallucination. And one of the best scenes of the book is Palmer Eldritch, who's not really seen until like the third act, which was actually when he came about, it was disappointing. But he gives Barney, he puts Barney into this hallucination, and it had just incredibly rich, nightmarish language. All of the illusions and hallucinations that are around him were written very well. He sees a little girl that's actually the mouthpiece of Palmer Eldritch, and there's giant rats and other creatures, and there's humans, far evolved humans in the future that come and visit him. And something happens where he has to like spend an eternity in this hallucination, but in reality it was just like a few seconds, but it like messed with his mind. And even though that was probably one of my favorite scenes of the book, as far as like the descriptive language, it is when the book started falling apart for me. As soon as these characters are now having hallucinations, and while you're reading it, you're experiencing the hallucinations, the characters now don't know what's real or not real. And unfortunately, that I felt was in large part supposed to be climactic, and for me it was incredibly anticlimactic. To me, it's like when someone's telling me a dream, and it's sort of there's really nothing more excruciatingly boring than someone telling you about a dream they had. It doesn't mean anything. It doesn't have any consequence. It abruptly ends. It's boring. And as soon as like what you're reading may or may not be what's really happening in the book, I did start losing interest. When Palmer Eldritch finally appears, it just really turned into like a dime novel, or just it felt very stock. While I was finishing the book, I'm just kind of waiting for all the pieces to fall into place to have like a proper wrap up. But I mean, I will say like I really enjoyed it from the get-go. As soon as I started it, it was sort of just when all the plot points started hitting, and I didn't really care for the all the drug talk and stuff like that. There was something that I think was amusing. They have like futuristic technologies, and one of them is it's called the Great Book Animations, and you can plug in and you can say which book you want, and then say if you want it to be long or short, or funny or sad. And the characters in the book will like pick Moby Dick but short, or Vanity Fair but sad, or the Meditations by Marcus Aurelius but funny. Um, and the fact that we have like so many adaptations being made today, and kind of like twists on or source material, um, it was entertaining to read, but also like not terribly far off from how things really are. And maybe the best line of the book that I did like, um, is it's one of the characters says, "Isn't a miserable reality better than the most interesting illusion, or is it an illusion?" Um, which, especially when people talk about like AI and virtual reality and things like that, I think it's an incredibly like philosophical um, question that um, presently um, is important to think about, like what's really real, um, and how far do we go altering our circumstances, and when does it become an illusion or not? Um, I'll end there. I will say that I would like to read more Philip K. Dick. I've only read a few of his short stories, um, but leave a comment if you'd like. This was The Three Stigmata of Palmer Eldritch by Philip K. Dick.